They were once the minds behind a revolution. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Carl Jung, his brilliant protege and chosen successor. But what began as mutual admiration ended in betrayal, broken ideals, and a split that changed the future of psychology. They were considered unstoppable, a powerful duo who cracked open the hidden world of the mind. Freud, the revolutionary who mapped our darkest desires. Jung, the visionary who believed the soul was far more than repressed instinct. They admired each other. They exchanged over 360 letters. They believed they were building something eternal. But then, everything fell apart. Was it just professional disagreement? Or was something deeper at play? An existential divide between two visions of what it means to be human. Their split wasn't just the end of a friendship. It was the birth of two radically different paths in psychology. One, rooted in science and sexuality. The other, reaching into myth, symbols, and the collective soul. In this video, we'll uncover the real reason behind the breakup that changed the course of psychology forever. And we'll ask a question that still matters today. Do we need only to understand the mind, or also the mystery within? The year is 1907. Carl Jung, a rising star in Swiss psychiatry, boards a train to Vienna to meet the man whose theories are shaking the foundations of medicine and morality, Sigmund Freud. They meet at Freud's apartment. What was supposed to be a short visit turns into a 13-hour conversation. Two brilliant minds colliding and connecting. Two men drawn together, not just by ideas, but by a shared sense of purpose to understand the human psyche, no matter how dark, no matter how controversial. Freud saw in Jung not just a colleague, but a successor. Jung was younger, Protestant, Swiss, a man who could carry psychoanalysis beyond the shadow of Jewish prejudice in early 20th century Europe. To Freud, Jung was hope. To Jung, Freud was a father figure, a pioneer, someone who had opened the door to the unconscious. They began writing to each other, obsessively. Their letters were filled with excitement, flattery, and sometimes subtle warnings. Freud once wrote, "Your person has filled me with confidence in the future." He even sent Jung a gift, a small carving of Ion, the ancient god of time and eternity, a token of their shared journey. For a time, their alliance burned bright. Together, they promoted psychoanalysis across Europe. They presented papers, edited journals, and faced criticism side by side. But beneath the admiration, differences simmered, and soon their shared vision of the psyche would begin to fracture under the weight of their convictions. At first, their differences seemed like intellectual diversity, healthy debate between equals. But over time, those cracks deepened. Jung began to feel constrained by Freud's insistence that sexuality was the root of nearly all psychological conflict. Freud, committed to his theory of the libido, warned Jung, "My dear Jung, promise me never to abandon the sexual theory. That is the most essential thing of all." To Freud, the unconscious was a cauldron of repressed desires, primarily sexual, shaped by personal trauma and early childhood. But Jung saw something more. To him, the psyche wasn't just a vault of shame and repression. It was a vast, symbolic landscape, a place of archetypes, myths, and universal truths that connected us all. Jung believed that dreams weren't just disguised wish fulfillment. They were messages from the deeper self, rich with spiritual meaning. He spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the shadow, the persona, the anima, and animus. This wasn't just theory. It was a spiritual revolution, and Freud was not ready for it. Their correspondence became tense. Freud accused Jung of mysticism. Jung felt Freud was closed-minded, dogmatic, even authoritarian. The split wasn't just about sex or spirituality. It was about the soul of psychology, Was the mind merely biology dressed in human skin? Or was it a portal into something far older, deeper, perhaps eternal? The friendship began to unravel. In 1913, after 6 years of collaboration, Jung formally broke with Freud, and with that rupture, modern psychology branched in 2 very different directions. At its core, the split between Freud and Jung wasn't just intellectual, it was profoundly psychological. They didn't just disagree about theory, they represented different types of psyche. Freud was the rationalist, the empiricist, the one who sought to dissect the unconscious like a surgeon. Jung was the mystic, the dreamer, the one who entered the unconscious like a traveler, exploring a forgotten realm. Their conflict mirrored an ancient tension between logos and mythos, science and soul. Freud feared that bringing in spirituality would undermine the scientific credibility of psychoanalysis. Jung feared that reducing the psyche to libido and trauma would amputate its meaning and mystery. But the psychology of their relationship ran even deeper. Freud often played the role of the father figure, not just in theory, but in life. Jung, once the obedient son, began to rebel. And as in many mythic stories, the son eventually breaks free, but not without pain. Jung later wrote that the split from Freud was his greatest psychic wound, but he also called it necessary, a moment of initiation, a descent into the depths that would eventually lead to the writing of the Red Book and the birth of analytical psychology. The end of their friendship symbolized a psychological truth. To grow, we must sometimes break away from the figures we once revered. Individuation requires separation from dogma, from projection, from the need to please. This wasn't just a professional disagreement, it was a myth playing itself out in real life. Freud and Jung embodied archetypes, father and son, master and disciple, tradition and transformation. Freud stood for order, structure, the known. He was the father of psychoanalysis, laying its groundwork with surgical precision. Jung stood for chaos, potential, the unknown. He was the one who dared to ask, what lies beyond the edges of science in the realm of symbols and spirit? In breaking from Freud, Jung wasn't just rejecting a theory. He was confronting the father archetype itself. This act, painful, transformative, is something many of us must face in our own psychological development. We all carry inner authorities, voices of parents, mentors, society, that tell us who we should be. But to become truly whole, we must face them, question them, and ultimately choose our own path. Jung's departure was a descent into the underworld of the soul. He lost status, support, and structure. But in that darkness, he found something far greater, a personal connection to the unconscious that would lead to his most groundbreaking work. Their split became a living metaphor. For anyone on the path of inner transformation, there comes a moment when the old structure must break so that something new and more authentic can emerge. The split between Freud and Jung wasn't a failure. It was a necessary divergence, one that allowed psychology to grow in 2 vital directions. Freud gave us the courage to confront the shadows of our past. Jung gave us the tools to explore the vast symbolic terrain of our inner world. Their relationship was intense, brilliant, and deeply human. It reminds us that ideas are born not in isolation, but through conflict, through rupture, through the tension between opposites. Jung once wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Perhaps the same is true of relationships, especially the ones that shape us. We don't always resolve them, but we grow through them. And in that growth, we begin to find the self, not in opposition to the past, but rooted in it, transformed by it, and finally, free to walk our own path. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe for more explorations of the soul, the mind, and the human journey. And let me know in the comments, who do you side with? Do you relate more to Freud's search for structure or Jung's call to the symbolic unknown? See you in the next video.